Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to talk about Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers because there has been a trend going around in NBA media where it's like, yeah, let's all just take a poop on Luka Doncic. Let's take a poop on Luka Doncic. For all the people that know, that watch me consistently, you guys know I'm a Laker fan. And you guys know I've been defending Luka all season. I've been defending Luka all season because I promise you he's not as bad as some of these guys will make it seem like. Whether it's Laker fans, LeBron fans, NBA media, Laker haters, everybody's stockpiling on Luka Doncic, where I would argue he's not the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth problem on this team. And this isn't a video where I'm going to be bringing in a lot of stats and throwing film at you. No, I truly don't care because I'm at a point where it's like, obviously, you guys don't see that Luka Doncic isn't as bad as you guys are making it seem. And sadly, when you are a Laker fan, people will talk about your team without context. They will talk about your team without context. When you have been blessed enough, and you have been, I'm not gonna say blessed enough. When you have been fortunate enough to go from superstar to superstar to superstar to superstar, people only look at the superstars. When you're able to go from Magic and Kareem to a little gap period to Shaq to Kobe. Once Kobe retires in 2016, you get about 2 more seasons. Then you get LeBron. Then the very next year, you get Anthony Davis. Then about four or five seasons later, you get Luka Doncic. So when you constantly have these superstar players in rotation, NBA media, even some Laker fans, and that very well-known, very, 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 very polite fan club of the LeBron James that is sharing our room with our true Laker fandom. We tend to ignore a lot of context when it comes to the Los Angeles Lakers. And right now, it's been a trend to say Luka Doncic is not a winning player, when he just led a team to the NBA Finals. And 2 years before that, he led them to a conference finals. And are we also forgetting the game 7 a few years back where he absolutely ended the series against, some people would say, the best team in the league? But I know what the problem is. I know what the problem is. I know why Luka Doncic is all of a sudden not a winning player, even though this has been who Luka was over like the past 3 seasons. I know exactly why Luka Doncic isn't a winning player anymore. Because he's wearing purple and gold. That's why Luka Doncic isn't a winning player anymore. Because he's wearing purple and gold. Because ever since February 1st, February 2nd, 2025, whichever day it was one of those 2 days. I remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, my goodness. People have been ignoring the context around this Los Angeles Lakers team. And they've continued to ignore the context. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm perfect. I was one of those people that took the Lakers over the Minnesota Timberwolves. I am one of those guys. But we have to realize we are forgetting where the Los Angeles Lakers were when they traded for Luka Doncic. The Los Angeles Lakers were considered one of the teams with the worst future in basketball before Luka Doncic got there. You had an aging LeBron James, which was about, I think he just turned 40. LeBron just turned 40. Just turned 40 before Luka got there. Anthony Davis, you can tell what he's been on since he's left the Lakers. And what was our young pieces? Austin Reeves, love him to death. Don Connect and Bronny James. That was our young core. That was context that was completely ignored. That was context that was completely ignored once the trade happened. Nobody cared. Nobody cared that just because we got a top 5 player in basketball, that the other 12 to 13 guys on the roster did not fit with him at all. Nobody cared about that. Nobody cared about that. Nobody cared that we probably had the worst center rotation in basketball. Nobody cared about that. Nobody cared about that. And if you guys want to sit here and say that I was one of those guys that didn't care, I have a podcast on the Mars Talk Sports YouTube channel, the Hoop Talk podcast. Go check it out, where we reacted to the trade the very next day. And the first thing I said was, we probably have the worst center rotation in the league. And then we moved to this offseason, this very past offseason, where the Lakers make minimal moves. They bring in Marcus Smart, who I think was a good pickup. They bring in Jake LaRavia, which is something that was on the margins, but I don't think it was a bad pickup either. The Lakers, again, adding context since everybody likes to ignore it. There was not much the Lakers can do. The Lakers have about two real assets on the team. One of them can't be moved because he has a no trade clause, and the other one, they're not interested in moving. There's not much as our fan base put photoshops on the internet and think we can get two defensive wings and a first round pick for Rui Hachimura. That's just not how basketball works. There's not a lot of teams that are calling for Luke Kennard. There's not a lot of teams calling for Maxi Kleba. There weren't a lot of teams calling for Gabe Vincent. There's not a lot of teams calling for Rui Hachimura. That's just not a thing. And to move off of some of these guys, we would have to attach draft capital. But guess what? The Lakers don't have that. The Lakers don't have that. They don't have any draft capital. That's the first thing I want to talk about is the context. That's the first thing I wanted to talk about. The Los Angeles Lakers were a team that were viewed as a team that probably weren't going to get out of the first round when we traded for Luka. The Los Angeles Lakers were a team that was considered one of the worst futures in the NBA post LeBron and AD because we had very little draft capital and very little young talent. And I feel like this context leads right into the very next thing I want to talk about. This roster is butt. This roster's butt. It's not good. I came into the season saying this Laker team is not good. It's not good. This Laker team is not good. I'm not even going to talk about our starting center. He's going to have his own segment. We're going to get to him. Trust and believe, DeAndre. We are going to get to you. You just sit back. You sit back and wait. We will get to you. We don't have any true point of attack defenders on this team. We don't have any athleticism. We don't have any speed. We don't have guys that went on the margin. We have no culture, and we have guys that show no effort. Being a Laker used to mean something. When Kobe Bryant was on this team, being a Laker used to mean something. Trevor Ariza, Ron Artest, these guys had pride when they put Laker on their uniform. When they had a Laker uniform on, there used to be some sense of urgency, some sense of pride, knowing that you're playing for one of the biggest sports companies in the world. Yet somehow, we have guys who are on their way out of the league, on minimum contracts, not playing hard. We have guys who are in their very first contract who won't give any effort defensively. Where do you find that? I think the Lakers, out of any playoff team in the space, have the biggest collection of guys who don't care. As much as we want to make basketball about X's and O's and play types and DHOs, all that, and I'm not going to lie, this sounds very old head. As much as we want to make it about offensive rating, 3-point percentage, 3-point volume, action, DHO, sometimes you just have to have players who care. And the Lakers don't have that. They don't have that. There aren't a group of players that say, hey, I care. And some of our biggest motor guys can't even play. They can't even play. Jared Vanderbilt is not going to get serious minutes in the playoffs. As much as he cares on the defensive side of the floor, he is extremely offensively. He is capped to a point offensively where he can't even play. He can't finish. He can't catch. He can't shoot. He does not make good decisions. He just doesn't. But do you know what team had a level of care, a level of athleticism, a level of defense, a level of winning on the margin, a level of grit, a culture? The 23-24 Dallas Mavericks. Who led that team? And what did they end up doing? Going to the NBA Finals. They went to the finals. Their defense beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. Their defense beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. Their defense beat the Clippers. That's another thing. Even if you want to talk about context, that's something, that context, we don't have a culture. We don't have a culture. And as much as we want to talk about Luka, now I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and act as if Luka doesn't doesn't bring any flaws, or Luka is just like ignored when it comes to problems on this basketball team. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not going to act as if Luka just is this perfect NBA player and we can't look at him for any issues on this team. Luka is legitimately a bad defender, but this has been one of the best Luka defensive seasons we've seen all year. Now the bar is in hell. The bar is in hell, but this is one of the best Luka defensive seasons we've seen all year. This is the same exact Luka Doncic from 23-24. This is the same Luka Doncic, and it's definitely been the same Luka since the start of the calendar year. If we take a look at what Luka Doncic has been doing since January 1st, it's very similar numbers to what he was doing in 23-24. 32 points per game, 8.5 assists, 7 rebounds, getting to the free throw line 10 times a game, shooting 56% on 12 two-point attempts a night, while shooting 40% from three. This is the same Luka. If we look at Luka's stats from his 23-24 year, 34 points per game, 10 assists, 9 rebounds. Yeah, you can argue that the assists and rebounds went down. Still shooting around 11 to 13 two-point attempts per game, while shooting better from three. All the grifting Luka does, that was happening in 23-24. That was happening. The difference is now Luka gets to the free throw line substantially more. Let's take a look at 23-24, where he's getting to the free throw line 9 times a game. Now he gets to the free throw line 11 times a game. And I don't want to hear shit about the playoffs because he's still averaging 9 free throws a game in the last postseason, where the Minnesota Timberwolves beat him up. Trust me. The Timberwolves beat him up. We're going to talk about that too. Because no. And for all my people that I know are about to point at the Timberwolves series and the Boston series, yeah, that's not, I'm like, again, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Luka was disappointing in both of those series. But one of the things that I also feel as though, this is another thing that has to go with context, how much of a mismatch we're like thinking about. Like, one thing I feel as though does not get talked about is how much of a mismatch the Boston Celtics were for the Dallas Mavericks, or how much the Minnesota Timberwolves were for the Los Angeles Lakers. For those who don't know, especially now in this situation that Luka's on with the Lakers, if you are on a team that does not hide your weaknesses are going to be much easier to spot. Every mistake Luka makes on the floor doesn't get covered up for. If Luka throws a turnover, he's averaging like 4 turnovers a game. The Lakers are one of the worst transition defenses in basketball, or some bad three-pointers. Again, the Lakers don't win on a rebounding margin, and they're one of the worst transition defenses in the league. Luka's a bad defender. There also aren't any good enough defenders around Luka Doncic to hide his defensive flaws. Because one thing we're not about to do is act like Luka isn't capable of performing on a top-tier defense. Because the Dallas Mavericks were a good defense in the postseason, and they were a good defense post-trade deadline. And guess who was averaging, what is it again? Guess how much was he averaging in that playoff run? He averaged 41 minutes per game in the playoffs in 23-24, and he averaged 38 minutes a night in 23-24. On a defense that got much better post-trade deadline when they acquired PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. This legitimately, in my opinion, has something to do with Luka Doncic just being in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform. That's what it is. Because when Luka was doing this, all throughout going to the NBA Finals, there was legitimate conversations of him being the best player in the world. Legitimate conversations. This was the same exact Luka that led Dallas to the NBA Finals, and people were ready to call him the best player in the world. The best player in the world. This is a Laker thing. And before we get out of here, there's a few things I want to talk about before this video ends. One, I want to talk about DeAndre Ayton, because there's a quote that DeAndre Ayton had where it's like, they're trying to make me Clint Capella, all this nonsense. DeAndre Ayton was a project. This is what you get when you're like buying low on somebody to see if there could be some high upside, and the upside just was not there. This is a number 1 pick in the draft about to be out of the league. Based on your performance this year, I don't think you're going to be getting much than you're already making. And then trying to make the Clint Capella comp, Clint Capella in 2018, I would take over this DeAndre Ayton in a heartbeat. I would be much happier with 2018 Clint Capella than this DeAndre Ayton. I'd almost be happier with Clint Capella now than DeAndre Ayton. Because in the end of the day, you're playing with two of some of the best pick and roll ball handlers in basketball and one of the best floor generals in basketball in LeBron James. There should be no way in hell that your production and your value and your effort on the court is down. And I don't know who needs to tell you, you're not good enough offensively to be somebody that's used in a different role. Rebound the basketball, block shots, run in transition, catch lobs. I don't care about none of the finesse stuff. I don't care about none of the mid-range shooting. I don't care about none of that. That's not who you are anymore. And unfortunately, that wasn't your choice. If you want to go out and give half-ass effort every night, you're going to get treated like a run and jump big. That's who you are, and that's who you're going to be if you want to stay in the NBA. The DeAndre Ayton experience is over. It's over. Nobody after this season, I promise you, nobody is going to be like, yeah, that guy, let's make him our starting center. We're a contending team. We think we can go win a championship. Let's have DeAndre Ayton start for us. I don't care. Nah, bro. And the last thing I want to talk about, JJ Redick. JJ, you have next year. I understand there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things. So I'm not 100% blaming JJ Redick. I'm not 100% blaming JJ Redick. One, last year was a resounding success. I think the Lakers overachieved. When you look at the offensive structure he had for the team before the Luka trade, then getting a top tier superstar in the middle of the season, I think his house burned down as well. So it's like, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm just all the way out on JJ Redick and he's a bad coach. You have to understand there are very few coaches in NBA history who go through those level of circumstances in their very first year of coaching any real level of professional basketball. And that's where I feel as though you have to be patient with JJ. But then again, the Lakers aren't an organization that are patient with their coaches. And that's where the whole hiring was confusing to me in the first place, because JJ Redick is somebody that has not coached professional basketball before this. JJ Redick is somebody that can be looked at as a good offensive mind, but that's also something that has to come with time. And the Lakers don't have time. We need a culture build. We need a team build. We need a structure build. And JJ Redick just has not had the experience of dealing with a multitude of personalities, or just a multitude of personalities in a coaching manner. He has not coached grown men before this. So and what I meant by you have 1 year, I'm going to say this. I'm going to take that back, and I'm going to say this season coming up after this season will be my very first year of looking at you through a lens of a coach, if that makes sense. Because I've been throwing JJ Redick bill, which I think is fair with what's been going on in his first season and having seriously lackluster talent in his second season. I think JJ Redick is going to show me next year what he's truly made of, and that's where I'm going to base my decisions on JJ Redick as a coach. I just don't think right now JJ Redick is the guy to blame. But somebody that has this offseason, Mr. Rob Pelinka. You have this offseason, buddy, or I'm all the way out. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys like this type of content, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram at @thebuzzersports_. Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter at ATBSports1, and make sure you guys follow me on TikTok at @thebuzzerENT. And with all that being said, I will see you guys next time. Peace.